I paid for my brother-in-law's rehab, took care of his kids, and even let them stay with us. One night, he came home drunk and said, "You think you're better than us just because you're sober?" My sister-in-law laughed and said, "This isn't your house anymore." My husband didn't say a word. I left with nothing but my phone. But 3 months later, I got a call that I'm a 39-year-old woman from Greensboro, North Carolina, and 3 months ago, I walked out of my own home with nothing but my phone in my hand. Not because I wanted to, but because it had stopped being my home. I need to tell this from the beginning, because people don't end up in my shoes overnight. It builds. Slowly. One choice at a time. One silent moment at a time. Trevor and I had been married almost 9 years. We didn't have kids. Not because we couldn't, but because we weren't ready. Or at least I wasn't, because I knew I'd be raising them mostly alone. Trevor wasn't abusive or cruel, he was just lazy. Passive. The kind of man who lets life happen to him and never fights back. I worked full-time at a small accounting office. Paid the bills, cooked dinner, handled the taxes, cleaned the house. Trevor had a job doing HVAC work with his brother Daryl, but he'd go weeks without working whenever Daryl was in a rough patch. Daryl was a disaster. That's not even me being mean. He'd been to jail 3 times before he turned 30. Meth, weed, pills, drunk driving, you name it. And yet, everyone in the family made excuses for him. He's got a good heart. He just needs structure. He had a hard childhood. We all had a hard childhood. That doesn't give you the right to destroy everyone around you. Daryl had 2 kids with a woman named Macy. She was loud, bossy, and always tired. The kind of woman who bragged about being a strong mama while her kids sat in stained clothes watching TV for 10 hours straight. I never liked her, but I helped anyway. Last summer, Daryl overdosed behind a Dollar General. Macy called me, crying, asking what to do. I had no reason to help them. But I did. I paid $13,400 for him to get into a private rehab in Asheville, because the public one had a 6-week wait and Daryl would have been dead before then. That money was from my emergency savings. The money I had set aside in case Trevor lost his job again or we needed a new roof. Then Macy and the kids moved in. Just till we figure things out. She brought garbage bags full of clothes, half of which smelled like mildew. The kids were scared and quiet. I tried to give them some normalcy, hot meals, clean sheets, a bedtime routine. A month later, Daryl got out of rehab and came to stay too. At first, it seemed okay. He was clean, went to meetings, even shaved and got a haircut. I let myself hope. I wanted to believe he was turning it around. But within 2 weeks, the signs were there. The twitching. The long naps. The lies about job interviews he never went to. Then came the booze. He'd drink in the garage and sneak it into soda bottles. He got sloppy. Mean. Loud. Macy stopped pretending to care. She'd sit on the porch smoking while I cleaned up their mess and got their kids ready for school. One night, I came home late from work. The house was dark except for the flicker of the TV. Daryl was on the couch with a beer in one hand and a bottle of whiskey on the floor. He was drunk. Not tipsy, drunk. "You think you're better than us just 'cause you're sober?" he slurred at me, smiling like he'd said something clever. Before I could say a word, Macy laughed from the recliner and said, "This ain't your house anymore. You just live here." I looked at Trevor, who was standing behind the kitchen counter with a beer. His eyes didn't even meet mine. He said nothing. Nothing. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, just listening to the sound of that cheap TV playing a rerun of Cops, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then I turned around, walked into our bedroom, took my phone off the charger, and left. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't even take my wallet. I left the car, it was in Trevor's name. I walked 3 miles to a Shell station and called Laura, a coworker who'd offered me her couch once if I ever needed it. She didn't ask questions. She just came. The next few months were hard. I rented a tiny studio apartment. Worked my accounting job during the day and picked up waitressing shifts at night. I ate ramen and paid my bills on time. I didn't contact anyone from that life. I didn't check on Trevor, or the kids, or Daryl. I figured they didn't want me around, and I didn't need more people dragging me down. Then 3 months later, I got a call. A number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I finally checked it, it was the elementary school. Lacey and Micah hadn't been picked up in 2 days. Social services had stepped in. They found the kids home alone, dirty, scared, and hungry. Daryl had been arrested again, for assault and drug possession. He'd beaten Macy and she'd ended up in the ER with a broken collarbone. Macy wasn't pressing charges, but she wasn't taking the kids back either. She told social services she couldn't do it anymore. They had my number because I was listed as the emergency contact. I sat there, holding my phone, hearing nothing but my own breath. I hadn't thought about those kids in weeks. But now, all I could picture was Micah's shy smile. Lacey's little hand grabbing mine when she was scared. I didn't know what I was going to do next. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them end up like their parents. The next morning, I called the social worker back. Her name was Diane. Calm voice. Tired, but professional. "We don't have many options," she said. "Family placements are usually preferred, and you're the only relative contact who answered. If you can't take them, they'll go into the system." I asked, "Can I see them first?" That afternoon, I went to the CPS office on Eugene Street. The room they brought the kids into was small, with old blue carpet and a table with plastic chairs. Lacey ran in first and nearly knocked me over. Micah followed slower, head down, eyes darting everywhere. They both looked thinner. Dirty clothes. Lacey had scratches on her arms. Micah wouldn't talk at all. That was the moment I made the decision. Not out loud, but inside. I took them home. No beds. No toys. Bare cabinets. But it was quiet. Clean. Safe. The next few days were hard. Micah cried at night. Lacey wouldn't let me out of her sight. I bought groceries on a credit card I hadn't touched in months. I borrowed an air mattress from Laura and bought a used twin bed from a woman on Facebook Marketplace. Social services scheduled a home inspection. They asked questions: where I worked, how much money I had, whether I planned to adopt. I told them I wasn't sure yet. That was the truth. I didn't know if I could do this long term. But for now, I wasn't going to let them fall through the cracks. Then, a week later, Trevor called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "You took the kids?" His voice was dry, angry. "That's not your place. They're not yours." I deleted it. A day later, another message: "They're better off with their family." I blocked his number. But it didn't stop there. One morning, I found a note stuck to my windshield, written in blocky, uneven letters. "You think you're a hero. You're not. Stay out of our lives." Then someone keyed my car. Deep scratches across the driver's side. I didn't report it. I just kept my head down. A few weeks passed. The kids settled in. I started filing paperwork to become their guardian. Then one night, around 10 p.m., there was a knock at the door. I looked through the peephole. It was Macy. She looked like hell. Eyes sunken. Arms wrapped around herself. She was shaking. "I just want to talk," she said. I opened the door halfway. "Why are you here?" "They said you took my kids." I stared at her. "They were left alone for 2 days, Macy. I didn't have a choice, she whispered. Daryl came back. He was gonna kill me. I ran. Her lip was split. Her left cheek was bruised. I don't want them back, she said. I just wanted to know they were okay. I didn't say anything. Just stood there. I never wanted to be a mom, she said suddenly. I thought I did. But I can't do it. I can't even take care of myself. Then she looked me in the eye. But you can. You always could. Then she turned and walked down the stairs and disappeared into the night. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called Diane, the social worker. I want to make it permanent, I said. I want to adopt them. She didn't sound surprised. I'll start the paperwork. 2 weeks after I started the adoption process, I got served. A lawyer showed up at my door with papers. Trevor was suing for custody. Not just of the kids. He was claiming I had manipulated the situation and was unfit to care for them. The paperwork said I abandoned the marital home, that I had no legal rights to Lacey and Micah, and that Trevor, as their uncle and primary family male figure, was stepping in to protect them from instability. I almost threw up reading it. He wanted custody so he could what, hand them back to Daryl? Or maybe he just wanted to hurt me. That was more like it. I called a lawyer. It was the first time I'd ever hired one. Her name was Shay. Sharp eyes, firm voice, no patience for men like Trevor. I liked her immediately. He doesn't have a case, she said. But that doesn't mean this won't get ugly. And it did. Trevor showed up at the courthouse with a new woman on his arm. Blonde, tight clothes, fake smile. She testified that Trevor had stability and a strong support system. I had letters from the school. From my boss. From the social worker. All saying the same thing, the kids were safe with me. Still, Trevor lied under oath. Said I screamed at the kids. Said I stole from him. He even told the judge I had a mental breakdown and fled our marriage. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat still, with my hands clasped in my lap, while Shay ripped his lies apart one by one. Then Shay pulled out a document. It was the rehab invoice. The one I paid. My name on it. My bank account. Who paid for Daryl's rehab, she asked. Trevor blinked. We did. No, Shay said. She did. Alone. Without your help. He didn't have an answer. That should have been the end of it. But 2 nights later, the front window of my apartment shattered. A rock came flying through it, wrapped in duct tape. On the tape were the words, "Give them back." The kids were asleep in the back room. I called the cops. Filed a report. But I knew what the police wouldn't say. It was Daryl. Or Trevor. Or both. I put in for emergency relocation through DSS. 3 days later, I moved. New apartment. New locks. New school district. The kids didn't ask questions. They just packed. I got an order of protection against Trevor and Daryl. The judge granted it. But that didn't stop the damage. Because a week later, Shay called and said, "There's a problem." What kind of problem? They've hired a private investigator. They're trying to dig up anything they can use. They weren't going to win in court. So now, they were going to smear me in the street. And then came the real twist. Daryl was back in jail. But not just for drugs or assault. This time, it was for fraud. Turns out, Daryl and Trevor had been using my name and social security number, back when I was still living there, to open credit cards. They racked up nearly $30,000 in debt. I didn't even know until the collections started showing up. They'd been planning it. 4 months. Maybe even before I left. I stared at the letter from the collection agency. I felt sick. They didn't just want to hurt me. They wanted to ruin me. But I still had one thing they didn't. Proof. And I was going to use it. I took the letters, the court papers, and the fraud statements to Shay. She didn't flinch. We can turn this around, she said. They wanted a war. We'll give them one. We filed a criminal complaint. Identity theft. Credit fraud. Harassment. I handed over everything, bank records, texts, screenshots, old emails. Shay got the police involved. This time, they cared. Because now it wasn't just a messy family fight. Now it was a federal crime. The detectives found the IP addresses. The billing addresses. Even surveillance footage from a gas station where Daryl used a card in my name. There was no wiggle room. Trevor was arrested at his job. In front of his new girlfriend. Daryl was picked up again from county lockup. He never even made it outside before they slapped new charges on him. I went to the hearing. I sat in the second row behind the prosecutor, watching them both in shackles. Trevor looked thinner. Older. That smug grin was gone. Daryl wouldn't even look at me. The prosecutor laid it all out: identity theft, mail fraud, conspiracy, and endangerment, because Lacey and Micah were in the house when it all happened. I testified last. I helped them, I said, voice shaking. I gave them money, time, my home. And they stole from me. They left children alone in filth. They laughed when I walked out with nothing. But I built something from that nothing. I built it again. Without them. The judge listened. Quiet. Then sentenced Trevor to 2 years, and Daryl to 5. Macy testified too. She admitted to knowing what they were doing, but she cooperated with investigators, which probably saved her from time. When we walked out of the courthouse, I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt tired. But the story wasn't over. Because 2 months later, the adoption was finalized. I sat in that small courtroom with Lacey on my right and Micah holding my hand. The judge smiled and said, "From today on, this is your forever family." Lacey cried. Micah whispered, "Can we stay here forever?" I nodded. Forever. They were safe. I wasn't perfect. I stayed too long in that toxic house. I let people walk all over me. I gave chances that shouldn't have been given. But I learned. I acted. And when it mattered most, I stood up. They tried to destroy me. But I'm still here. And they're not.